I'm delighted to be moderating these three gentlemen. I've done quite a bit of homework on all three of you, so I'm going to try and let you speak for yourselves in terms of your credentials. They're very, very impressive, and that's the reason why you're at your three respective brands. You're all three relatively new, and there's a reason why you're there. So I'm going to let you speak a little bit about your CV on your own. I have it right here. If you skip anything that you've done that's absolutely spectacular. Go right ahead, Andy.
There we go. All right, there we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Andy Rebhun. I am the CXO of Cava. Essentially started my career at Ford Motor Company, was there for 5 years, made a move from Mustangs to McNuggets, started my career at McDonald's Corporation, was there for about 6 years, and then most recently was the CMO of El Pollo Loco. I've been at Cava for 90 days. It's been an exhilarating 90 days, as you can imagine. We have a pretty good presence here in Southern California. We have, let's see, we got El Segundo, we have Culver City, Santa Monica, Westwood. We're a growing brand. You're going to see a lot more pop up here in the Southland. So really excited to be here today. And just quick plug for Brand Innovators. I have been coming to these events for 12 years. Mark met me when I was very young in my career in Detroit, and they gave me an opportunity to speak, and I'm very grateful that they continue to give me an opportunity here. So for all of you who are less tenured or more tenured, this is a great organization to network, and it can really help you out. So.
Very cool. Thank you for that, Andy. We're going to come back to the more difficult part of the session here. AK, I'm going to let you explain your career. It's quite illustrious, it's very impressive, and the time that we've already spent together, I can't wait to see what else you're going to do, which I'm going to ask you about.
Awesome. So hello, everybody. Good afternoon. The name is AK Oghoghomeh, but my first name is actually Akero. Nigerian. I'm from New Jersey. I say I'm Nigerian. I've been using that joke for 10 years. So I actually kicked off my career as an engineer. I have a chemical engineering background. I spent the first 5 years working at DuPont, doing true chemical engineering, process engineering. And then after kind of cleaning myself off, after like working my way through a distillation column, I said, you know what, I think there needs to be a change in my life. Went to grad school, got the MBA, and then I actually started my marketing and brand career at Conagra Foods. So any ex-cons in the building? Any other ex-cons? No? All right. So I spent about 5.5, 6 years at Conagra, working on a variety of different brands, doing shopper marketing, advertising, but then also actually doing classical CPG brand marketing. And I got a little tired of doing the strategic demand gen focused marketing, forecasting style brand management, and wanted to get back to true marketing, which is what I really enjoyed doing when I first started at Conagra. And then Red Bull came calling, and they came and hired me back in 2012. And I was actually the first brand manager hired at the company. I was a regional brand manager over the southern region of the country. And I spent about 7 years there doing that, growing in my career, taking on more responsibility, and helping the brand figure out who the consumer was and how best to target them. So after about 7 years there, I capped out. I felt like it was time for me to move on. I was living in Nashville with my growing family. I decided to move on to I was at Campaign Monitor, which is a marketing technology startup. This is where I got B2B marketing experience, working in performance marketing. Demand gen was really a key focus for what we did there. Did that for a couple of years, and I moved on to Amazon during the pandemic. And I started at Amazon. The stock was at $1,700 a share. By the time I left, it was at $3,700, and that was 1 year. I only spent 1 year at Amazon. The stock grew by $2,000 a share over that time, so I really enjoyed that.
Were you buying dinner?
I didn't have that much stock vested by the time I left. But it's interesting. We talked about culture and we talked about community earlier. And Red Bull reached back out to me about a year into my time at Amazon and said, hey, we really want you to come back. There was a moment that was happening in 2020 when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, and the brand had kind of lost its way a bit in terms of the way that we connected to culture and community. And they wanted somebody to come back who really understood the brand in a very intimate way, understood culture in a very intimate way. And they asked me to come back and lead their brand marketing organization. So I came back. I was the SVP of brand marketing for about 3 years. Really enjoyed the time of really helping the organization heal, helping the organization find its North Star again, and continue to connect with consumers, not just at the register, but also within their heart and within their mind. And then after that time, I got a phone call from a guy named Ethan Brown. He's the founder and CEO of Beyond Meat, and he was looking for someone to help lead that brand into the next generation, right? To really help them tell their story in a really intimate way. And I decided after an hour-long conversation with him that it was a really exciting opportunity, and I was really pumped to join the brand and really help guide a couple of these folks that are out here working on my team right now. But it's been a truly incredible 5 months at this company. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, AK. Super, super fascinating. All right, Jeff, CMO, CXO, Blue Bottle Coffee. Your history is Maserati, Nike, Verizon, NutriBullet. Tell us more.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. Thanks to the BI crew for the invitation. I live in Boston, so I'm not sure why I'm in LA, but I'm always happy to be on the West Coast. So I'm actually all over the place, so it's good to be here. My career, I started in advertising, the traditional advertising, worked for big agencies like Oghoghomeh and Mather and small ones like Kirschenbaum Bond and Partners, just doing the strategic planning thing. And then went to an innovation firm called Red Scout, and so did a lot of innovation strategy and planning, new concept development, and ended up getting a call from Nike, and that's when I made the move to the brand side. And that's really where I sort of think sort of like the graduate school, kind of marketing. Spent about 8 years there, started the consumer insights function there. That sort of morphed into, I got partnered up with someone from IDEO, and we built something called the Brand Innovation Team, and we led that. That was really building out the service experience at Nike. Nike was very much a product-centric company at the time, wholesale, and a lot of this was about how does it start to transform into bringing product, service, and experience together? How does it start to become more of a direct company? We worked on the original Nike Plus ecosystem, and I left there actually as the global VP of marketing for Nike Plus. In particular, we launched the Fuel Band at that time as well, which was sort of our version of the Fitbit. Got really enamored with the tech thing, went into a startup that took me back to the East Coast, which imploded in a very bad way about a year in. We're 40 people in there, so I don't know how many folks have been in a startup, but pre-revenue, pre-product, it's very early, highly, if you're going to go into a situation like that, you got to really know what you're doing, because the odds are pretty slim that you make out of that. So anyway, that was about a year in. Ended up then going back to Verizon as the first head of what they call total experience. So we revamped the entire direct ecosystem, mobile app. It was funny, like Verizon at the time for a telco, and I know Verizon's a partner of the Rams and everything. It's, for a company that had the most wireless, the most internet connections, mobile internet, they had the worst mobile experience. So it was really sort of trying to transform that, as well as the e-com business, which was a measly $4 billion in revenue at the time. And so, wireless at the time was a $90 billion business. So that's with the B. Yeah. So it's going from a startup to that was very, very different. And so anyway, so after that, I started getting into more turnarounds and transformations. Did a turnaround private equity play with a company called NutriBullet, which everyone probably has had one. So that is, an interesting. If you look at it today, it looks very different than the infomercial company that built that business, acquired by DeLonghi Group, and then I ended up, fast forward. With a previous boss, an actually interesting point on the network is how important that is over time, at Maserati of all places. So I ended up in automotive, which was I thought telco was an eye opener coming out of Nike, but automotive is a whole nother level. And that was really interesting, getting to the luxury auto space. A company that was 200 million in the hole at the time, so a real sort of turnaround place, now profitable, and they have a whole new lineup of cars. And then when it was time to potentially move to Detroit, there was an opportunity here at Blue Bottle with someone who actually I had worked with previously at Nike and Converse, who also had worked with the CEO of Maserati. So again, this sort of like connection, and yeah, so I've been here for about a couple of years now, and looking to take this brand to the next level.
Awesome. We're going to come back to you and hear a little bit more about that. I know there's a lot of connections with AK. So, all right, I'm going to come back to you, Andy. So I was particularly fascinated by your career history, and I want to learn a little bit more about specifically experiential marketing innovation. To paraphrase what you have on your LinkedIn, innovation is at the heart of unique consumer experience. So after your tenure at McDonald's, a 98% franchisee-owned American heritage brand, El Pollo Loco, a 100% company-owned Mexican-American heritage brand. What will experience marketing innovation look like at Cava, where Mediterranean culture is at the heart of the flavors and the hospitality, and something I'm very interested in learning of because I'm half Armenian, so I want to learn all about it.
Okay. Well, I think at this point, haven't necessarily determined what our experiential marketing strategy is going to be yet. I know we have our friends from the Rams here. We've spoken a couple times already. Hi, Jen. I think long story short, the biggest thing when you work for a food brand is getting the food in people's mouths. And I think one of the things that's truly unique about Cava and the way we go to market with new restaurant openings is we have this thing called a community day. It essentially invites the community out, welcomes them to our table, and people have the opportunity to try the food for free for the first time. We partner with a local nonprofit, usually focused on food insecurity, and it essentially gives them the opportunity to raise funds on their behalf and also gets food in people's mouths. I've done experiential marketing in the past as I reflect on some of the career. Ford Motor Company, it was all about getting people in the vehicle. It's a very, very different type of automotive environment at this point. I'm sure you can say from Maserati too. People are going online now, but before it was getting people in Ford Flexes and F-150s. McDonald's, there was a period of time where it was all about breaking the cycle of Dunkin' and Starbucks and trying to get McCafe in people's mouths. El Pollo Loco was the fire-grilled chicken. So, what's unique about all these different experiences I've had is what I love about the food space specifically is the cost of entry is so much lower. So if I can convince someone for a $5, $10, $15 meal to come try the product, to me, it's a lot more exciting personally. I know vehicles is a challenge in itself than trying to convince someone to make the second most expensive purchase they're going to make in their life, which is a car. Long purchase cycle, 3, 5, 7 years. But that's why I love experiential marketing, because to give someone the opportunity to try the product is fascinating. It's challenging, but it's a share game and it's a share a wallet game. So it's fun.
Very, very interesting. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to move on to AK. So AK, I was particularly fascinated by what you told me over the phone about American farmland through fava bean farmers and how that's playing a huge role in your marketing, amongst many other things, including demystifying the Beyond Meat brand and the incorrect perceptions that maybe consumers have, including myself until I spoke with you, quite honestly. So I'm super happy to learn more about it because I am going to try it. I haven't yet, but I will. And then we'll talk about sports and Beyond Meats and various stadiums, which I'm sure will become a partnership here at the Rams and SoFi eventually, in due time. No pressure, no pressure. So yeah, going back, American farmland through fava beans and farmers. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I started with Beyond Meat 5.5 months ago. And when I sat down with the founder, and part of the reason why I decided to leave Red Bull to come to Beyond Meat was because it was a founder-led, mission-driven company. And it just so happens that when I was chatting with him, I was watching my kids play on a soccer field in Kenneth Hahn Park, and watching them play in this beautiful field. It was a clear blue day. It was gorgeous. And as I spoke to him more and more, I began to understand that the same beautiful day that they had, the opportunity to be outside and enjoy this beautiful weather, would be something that their kids may not be able to enjoy, or their kids' kids may not be able to enjoy because of decisions that we were making today. So I realized that giving wings to people and ideas was awesome, but making sure that there was a better way for us to exist in the future would be even more incredible. So, kind of tugged at the heartstrings, and I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. But what I noticed was that we weren't really telling a great story about the brand. People didn't really understand why the brand existed in any real way, and they really struggled with understanding where the product was coming from. What also happened over the last 3 or 4 years, Kyle and Emily both can tell you about this, is that the company was a really fast-paced, fast-growing company, and then I think I'm going to sound a little conspiracy theorist here, but the meat industry took notice and said, "Hey, you guys are trying to disrupt us. We've been around forever. We're not going to let this happen without doing something about it." So more and more news reports started coming out about plant-based meat and whether or not it was actually healthy. Plant-based meat and whether or not it was actually good for the planet, and where this product was actually coming from, and if it was actually made in a lab. So one of the things that I wanted to do, even before starting, was really demystify the way that these products were made, help people understand where they came from. And it's a really wonderful story where goodness is embedded and created at every single stage of the way. So our CEO actually went to Munich, North Dakota, and he met with farmers, faba bean farmers. It's actually the furthest south you can go to make these incredible little beans. And he got a chance to talk to them and understood why they were actually making the change from creating crops like corn that they had been making for generations, and instead moving on to nitrogen-fixing or nitrogen-enriching products like faba beans and peas, which are the base protein for the products that we make. And then the more we heard from these farmers, the more we said, man, we've got to get this story out there, right? There's a community of people out here that doesn't really understand that this product is actually made in the heartland of America. It's then taken from the heartland and then taken to another place in the heartland in Missouri to then be processed. And the process is very simple. We wanted to make sure that they understood the process and then kind of share that with them. And we felt like this was really important because the number one reason why people transition to plant-based meat is because they're trying to do something better for their health. And if they don't believe that what they're consuming is actually better for them or clean, then they're not going to do it. So we wanted to kind of demystify that as a part of this campaign. And it's interesting, a part of the way that we've done that in the past is through athlete marketing and sports partnerships. We've done quite a bit with athletes. Todd Gurley, who's a former Ram, was actually a Beyond Meat investor and athlete endorser. And we realized that if consumers could actually see an athlete consuming this product and then operating at the highest levels, then maybe they would consider that it would be something that could help them operate, where they are. So we continue to have that as a part of our mission and a part of our go-to-market approach, but we also want to make sure that we're letting people understand more about the product and the process to make our products.
Really interesting background and story. Okay, moving on to Jeff. You are a leader who, throughout his career, has helped brands win today by creating tomorrow. Again, paraphrasing from your LinkedIn, not to stalk you all, but I'm absolutely fascinated with the brand personally. Human-made, delicious first, craft instant espresso, rejuvenated, e-commerce subscription, ethically sourced. Tell us a little bit more about the entire culture around all of that, including your matcha latte, Nola coffee, New Orleans inspired. It's all full circle, including Ethiopian sourced.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a lot of things. I'll say, theme in my life is definitely in career has been very much focused on like next generation, for brands. And you never get to do that unless you're winning today, as I like to say. So so the things you do sort of tactically to do that while you sort of create these opportunities, for the brand in the future. For Blue Bottle, Blue Bottle is actually owned by Nestle. It was acquired in 2017. They took a majority investment and they did a full buyout, a couple years ago. So they're really looking to see like, hey, how can this become something in the premium, coffee space? And so, the brand has been around for like 20 years. It was founded in the Oakland Farmers Market and has cafes in the Bay Area, in SoCal, the New York tri-state area, Boston, DC, and Chicago, and then also in Asia. So big, we've got like 20 plus cafes in Japan, another 10 plus in Korea. We opened up Hong Kong and Shanghai last year, and actually in Asia is where it's actually really growing. And the brand has really taken on to a different level over there. So if you've ever been to Japan or any of the Asian markets and you look for a blue bottle, you'll see that the experience is much more elevated than even here. So a lot of what we're trying to do is, really figure out, we spent the last 20 years really perfecting this idea of seed to cup quality. And that idea, it's really sort of follows that whole kind of slow food movement and the, farm to fork, kind of culinary. And so that's been really 20 years. And we sort of are talking about how to really sort of get to the next level. Coffee, like a lot of other products, is really a canvas and an incredible place that's creates intersection amongst people and communities. And so this idea of evolving and taking leadership, not just seed to cup, but seed to cup to culture, is something that we've been focusing on in terms of taking the brand to the next level. I think DC said this earlier, a lot of this has to come from a place that's authentic. People use that word a lot. For us, what that means is we sort of pursue this craft, and we've had people just come to us. In Japan, there's this guy named Nigo. Some of you may know. He's a pretty well-known streetwear designer. Turns out he is also a serious coffee head. And so he came to the brand, wanted to pitched a collaboration. We create a coffee line, he creates the merch and put it out as a capsule. And I think that was when we first got a little inkling, because put that online and it was gone, as you can imagine, in like 5 minutes. Never happened in the history of the company before. Oh wait, what's going on here? And all of a sudden, this idea that coffee can be a canvas for culture as well. There's things you're starting to see a lot more around. Like Jimmy Butler has a brand out there. There's a lot of so it's entering the sports sort of sphere as well, just thematically for where we're at. We know that if you look up ESPN basketball coffee, you'll see articles written about game time rituals that NBA players do with coffee now, and you're probably going to see a lot of, I'm sure, athlete, products coming out in that respect. But that's kind of what we're focusing on. I mean, I have a video. I don't know if it's is this a
amazing? Yeah. Let's go ahead and play that. Can you cue us up?
Yeah, so basically, there was a question whether, hey, do we have a video? And I don't have anything consumer facing that I had prepared, but so as part of this journey, we literally just this year have started to sort of express how we want to, elevate this brand. We talk about moving from being a cafe sort of centered company to being a coffee centered lifestyle company. And so built on the back and the foundation of our cafes and the experiences there, but then taking those experiences into your home, building out a merchandise line, home goods, things like that. Anywhere where coffee can create a more elevated experience. So in the pursuit of that, we've had to look at hey, what's true about us and what in our sort of DNA will allow us to do that. So we put a little internal video together. So really this is super rough and it's very insider. So I was told this is a small community. So I'll just show you here's our brand video that we did for our internal, kind of part of our brand strategy. And for us, we wanted to build on two sort of fundamental things. One was what we call deliciousness, which is just, that seed to cup, quality that yields just incredible tasting coffees. And then design was the other one, because all of our experiences are very, the belief was always, by James Freeman, our founder, speaking to founder driven, he had these principles around remove all the things that kind of get in the way of experiencing that end cup. And that's why the coffees our cafes are very sort of deliberately, minimal in the other things that you don't see a lot of, to my dismay a little bit, not a lot of, signage, not a lot of POS, where's the URL? We're just a subscription program, so there's some things that, we might have to adjust, but that's sort of what goes into it. So we try to build on those two things, and we sort of anchor around this idea of that at the end of the day, we're about this idea of great taste. And so we've tried to missionize that in the sense that we live in a world today of increasing speed and coffee is just productivity fuel. America runs on Dunkin', no diss to Dunkin'. I'm from Boston, I like Dunkin', and so how can we be an antidote to that kind of also, algorithm driven taste making, and how do we? So
I'm moving on back to you, Andy. Speaking of community. You said you were expanding to additional stores. Tell us a little bit more about that and how that's, if you can, and how will that affect the menu? Will that affect the ingredients? Will that affect, right now it's delicious salads that I love customized. My favorite thing in the whole world, customized salad. So tell us a little bit more about that growth, that intentional plan.
For sure. So right now we're opening up about 2 new restaurants a week across the country, which is really exciting. Right now we have 300 units across the U.S. We're in 26 states. Next big major market launch that we've shared publicly at this point is going to be Chicago. That'll be coming online in March of next year. We're really, really excited about that. With regards to menu innovation, it's fun. It's like a really, really fun brand to be a part of the menu innovation experience. When you think about the complexity involved with rolling out a new menu item, it might seem simple, sitting in a chair here, but you think about like the food quality, you think about the packaging, you think about what the cost of awareness is going to be, you think about whether or not the consumer is going to be willing to pay the price for it. So we have a couple of different tests right now in the system. Probably the one at this point that I'm most excited about is steak. I know that might seem a little foreign to some, but steak is something that I think is really interesting addition to our proteins in our menu. And one of the other things I think that we do really well is our collaborations that we have with people. Meredith and Nassim are 2 of our really big partnerships that we had in this last January, February time period. And then the one that everyone's very much familiar with is Emma Chamberlain. That was one that really put the brand on the map last year. She was phenomenal to work with. And I think as we continue to grow and expand, it's really about building that influencer strategy and staying true to who we are as a brand and recognizing too, we still have the founders very much involved in our business. They're incredible. They're the reason why I'm at Cava. Just super humble, and it's an inspiring brand to work for. So I feel lucky every single day. I wake up excited, even though I'm on my 5th caffeine of the day. It's just an incredible brand to be a part of. So a lot more coming specifically in California. So if you live in California, like I said earlier, a lot more are going to be coming online in the next probably 3 to 6 months. So more to come. And if you haven't tried Cava, come look for me. I'll give you a free card.
That's what I was hoping you'd say. Especially the growth in California. I'm anxiously awaiting that. Okay, AK, back to you. So your career has been very focused on being, not focused, but very, very driven by being a connector. And that's a big part of why you are at Beyond Meat. So tell us a little bit more about how that plays an influence in your marketing strategies. You obviously have a shining star that you brought to the table here or to the conference. So that speaks for itself in terms of being a connector, but tell us more about how that plays a role in the brand.
Well, I think it's critically important for all the brands that are probably present here to create connection and connectivity, not just with the consumers that you're trying to reach with your products, but also with the people that you're working with to help share your message to that consumer, whether it's through their voice or some type of collaboration or something like that. When I say that I like connection and connectivity, I like bringing people together. Right. As a matter of fact, the first campaign that we ran at Beyond Meat when I first started was all about having Beyond Meat be the instigator of togetherness, right? I felt like there was so much to divide us right now, an opportunity for us to be more inclusive and bring people together around shared meals, shared dialogue, shared experiences was something that would be critically important. And I kind of started right before the summer season started, which is our top selling season. And it felt like a really appropriate moment for people coming together through grilling moments or camping moments and things of that nature. So instead of having animal-based protein like steak, you might want to choose something plant-based that would have...
Maybe a future partnership between your two.
But maybe something plant-based that everybody can enjoy, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, you love animal protein or whatever. You could actually come back and come together with friends and family with a product that's really inclusive. So yeah,
You can try our falafel.
I love the falafel. It's
Okay, thank you for that. Super appreciated. Jeff, so your brand has expanded extensively in Japan, as you've already spoken about. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe a little sneak peek under the hood of how you're expanding, be it in North America, EU, any other part of the global market?
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret. I mean, actually, we learned during the pandemic, all the people who are drinking coffee, and when the cafes are closed, they still want to drink coffee. So our ecom business, exploded during that time. And I think, leadership at the time was like, oh, wait a second, we should probably focus on this channel as well. So, so for sure, part of it is there's the cafe expansion, into new markets. The ecom part is a big one because that allows us to go into cities where, it's a lot of capital to open up, restaurants and cafes. So you got to have a good sort of, equity, capital pool to sort of fund that. So we're sort of trying to balance that mix, in terms of how we do that. There's some new formats coming that we're looking at, I think in the markets where not everything has to be like a full-size cafe, potentially. And so just doing that in a way that's brand right for us. And then, I think we're looking at, we're experimenting with other things too. Even our partnerships and our collaborations, we're doing something with The Weeknd right now, and he wanted to build a coffee line in homage to his mother, he's from Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is the birthplace of coffee. So we're actually building a channel around that, where that product, is a way to sort of, it's a little bit different than expansion, but it is kind of its audience expansion, and it's, using different channels to do that, and with that sort of brand as the lead. And so it's been really interesting to see how that kind of, affects. He's on tour in Europe, for example. We don't have European distribution, and of course, all the demand is in Europe.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like, oh, wait a second, we probably should have had international shipping.
Yeah.
So just things like that, I think. So we're playing with that, new formats, and then, these other product channels. We're trying to productize certain things that can then go into like grocery and things like that. So really looking at it from a multiple.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So I apologize. I didn't leave enough time for Q&A, so I did see the signal. I will turn it over to our MC. Thank you, gentlemen. Super appreciate your time. Good to get to know you all.